Hey, everybody. Welcome to this month's edition of Scripting the Book. We have Laura back again as our guest host, and of course, my host, Ben and Natalie. And I will let everybody introduce themselves, and then we will jump right into it. We're going to be talking about holes today. So I'm very excited. We're going to start with our guest and let her introduce herself, and then we'll wrap it around.
I'm Laura Nettles. I mostly write horror, but I do have a pen name where I write romance. I am here. I am ready. I requested this book, so heck yeah.
I'm Natalie Locke. I write flash fiction, so I get to choose which genre I want to write in, like constantly, and keep changing it up. And I just add on. If y'all request books, we will get to it eventually. We have a list and everything, so I'm just saying it might actually move up the list if you request it. So yes. Don't be shy. Please throw them out there.
And I'm Ben Pick. Every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, although that might be switching up a little bit. I give questionable writing advice through Running Metaphors on Writing to Write on YouTube. I also have 3 books that I've written and starting to work on my 4th.
Nice. I'm so excited. All right. And I am Nia, the Vixen of Fiction, all over the internet. If you want to come hang out with us live to do some productivity, we do mostly writing, but you can do whatever you want. I stream on Tuesday nights at 7:30 here over on YouTube, and you can also find me over on Twitch. I do have my debut novel under Nia and V. James is out. It's called The Art of Wishcraft. It's a contemporary romance with a little bit of magic. It's a lot of fun. It's a short read. The second one's coming out in June, so I'm very excited about that. Let's dive right in. This one's going to be a short one today, guys, but it's going to be a fun one because I thoroughly enjoyed myself doing this one. So we are going to start with Holes, the book. Let me find my banner. We're going to do our first thing. Anybody a dislike on the book Holes? We have a neutral, calling our neutrals. Do we have a like? Any likes? Wow. What is happening? Did everybody love the book Holes? This was great. All right. So then who wants to go first? We usually start with the outlier. Let's start with our guest. Our guest who requested this one, and I was very excited when she did. Go ahead, Laura. Why do we love it so much?
So this book came out in I think 98. The movie came out in 2003. But yeah, I grew up on this book and I just loved it so much. And I don't know, like it's really good at having subplots that all come together. And I don't know, I love the book, and I read it, and then the movie was coming out and I was so hyped, and then the movie came out and I was like, yes.
Oh, so, I love to hear that. So
just that journey of so I was 13 when the movie came out.
Perfect.
So I learned that the author Louis Sacker actually wrote the screenplay for the movie. Yep. And I was like, hopeful. I know, so right? Hopeful. So yeah, I grew up on this book and it was just chef's kiss.
Nice. Natalie, why was it a love? Oh, I got you.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Also, I was trying to find my mouse so I could unmute myself. So the this book, although I am not I have never been a part of the male juvenile culture, it definitely seemed indicative of all the boys that I saw, just how they rag on each other and everything. So I really like that realistic aspect, especially just the weird names and everything, and like all tied to bodily functions and stuff, or gross things. I'm just like, oh my god. And I'm looking at my 6-year-old going, please don't. And I'm like, yeah, it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that.
Zero.
Bag.
Like something that should be like tear down your emotional like reserves is actually a term of endearment.
Caveman.
Yeah.
I just so that aspect, it definitely seemed really good there, as well as this, I mean, a actually pretty darn good interwoven story of past and present and
And
very
even
well
farther
developed
past.
goals and
Mhm.
of each character's, like it made sense. There was no like, why did they do that type thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's why it's a love. Mostly I like snapshots of culture, and I think it did pretty well as someone who's never been a part of it.
Thank you, Richard, for hanging out in the chat. We love your side commentary. Ben, why was it a love for you?
Yeah, for everything that everyone said up to this point, I was actually, of all the books we've done so far, I think this is the only one that I've been in the target market, in the target age group when it came out, and it
Oh,
definitely hit home. And to build off of what Natalie said, I do have a lot of friends in real life who have nicknames that are either derogatory or insulting. They aren't always terms of endearment. It might just be just pure insult. But that being said, Holes just encapsulated that juvenile attitude so well. And without going into specific spoilers, there was this one moment towards the very end. It's like the climax itself where I was caught off guard by a thing which happened 3 times. And like the first time I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, that's weird. The second time I'm like, oh, I see where this is going. And the third time I'm like, oh, yep, that's amazing. And so yeah, the book just wrapped up. It was such a tightly coupled story where all the subplots fuel together to tell something complete and emotionally fulfilling.
yeah. And I was not the target age, and this was really my youngest brother's target age, and so my kids initially remembered it from watching it with my youngest brother. My kids were 2 of my kids were babies when this book and the movie came out. So, but they remembered it, and when I was talking about it, my daughter's like, "Why does this sound familiar?" And she's like, "Oh, she did read this book, and I think all my kids read it." And I hadn't read the whole thing. I did one of those like mom checks. Oh yeah, this is a good one. It goes, um, on this one. So it wasn't one that I had like really gotten into reading it, but I was like, "Oh, this is cute. Okay, we like it. Gets the thumbs up." And when the movie came out, I do remember watching the movie and everything. But the book, reading it now for the first time all the way through, I was like Laura said, chef's kiss. I was like, good on. And it just, I'm like, yep, that's like 12, 13-year-old boys right there. Yep. That is it. That is it. It was perfect. And having a family member who's been to a camp in Texas, it made me chuckle because he was not a good boy. And it wasn't like this. It was more like what they got sent to after the fact. But I thought of that. I was like, I wonder what they were really making you guys do where it was fun to kind of like almost kind of like just go back and just have fun with this middle grade book. It was great. It was great. So yeah, I honestly was reading it and couldn't find anything that I didn't like really.
Mm-hmm.
Like no, because everything that you wouldn't like were things you weren't supposed to like. It was just as it should have been. Like the characters that you were supposed to hate, you hated them, and you wanted to see them get theirs in the end. And it's like, yes,
I would even say I applaud the author to even touch on interracial relationships. And even though he pulled it from a further back in time where it was definitely way more unacceptable, and just the and it's I'll wait. But I think it was well done, especially for a children's book too. technically.
Yeah. And the intentionality of the characters, that where I think with a lot of authors it's like a secondary thought, oh well, that person could have been black or could have been, another thing, but I'm not going to say. He was very intentional. No, this was a diverse group of kids and they were shoved in this situation, and sometimes they fought and sometimes they got along, and in the end, even when you think they're not getting along, they really had a lot of care for each other. That's just how that's just, I don't know, young teenage boys, pre-teenage
Trauma
boys.
bonding.
Yeah, trauma bonding. We were crapped on, so we're gonna crap on you. But hey, hang in there. We hope you don't die. So it was great, and I did appreciate it. He was very intentional with making sure that you're not gonna have to guess what's going on, what this character is, or what their situation is. And just because someone was one ethnicity or another didn't sway how they acted or behaved. They were whoever they were, and I was like, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. All right,
and it kind of showed that
this is gonna be quick. We liked it.
Yeah, it kind of showed that kids from all walks of life can end up in bad situations and go there.
Yep, exactly. And what did you think about Stanley just accepting the situation that he was in? Like, you can't fight it. He's like, he didn't do this thing, but almost like, I know no one's gonna, it doesn't matter what I say. I had the shoes. I had the item. So here we are. It's almost like
all thanks to his great-great-grandfather, his pig-stealing great-great-great-grandfather.
Yes, the family curse. So he's like, well, this is just part of the curse. So here we are. I'm accepting my fate.
Yeah.
I mean, that was actually very mature of him to realize that arguing or doing anything that showed a dislike of the situation was just going to make it worse for him. So it was one of those sad moments when you know that a kid wasn't able to be a kid anymore, for them to have that attribute at such a young age.
Yeah, and he really gets in there and he's like, I'm just gonna do my best to kind of, you can tell he's like, I'm just gonna do what I'm told, stick to the rules, try to get in and get along, and he's really just trying to make the best of a really bad situation, because this is a juvenile detention camp. It's not like, okay, you did a naughty thing, you're just gonna go to, like, it's hard labor camp for kids. It's like, what? So let's go ahead. We're gonna get into the movie because I just want to get spoilery. So we tried not to spoil it for you. If you want to read the book and without any spoilers, there you go. Because I'm ready to get into it. So we are gonna go on the movie. Anybody a dislike? Neutral? Like? Love? And I'm a like to love. So yes, this was good. All right. So even though it's a like, Ben, you are the outlier. So here we go.
Well, I really liked everything about the movie. I think it followed the book phenomenally well. It's one of the best we've seen in terms of just pure adaptation. I just really do not like Shia LaBeouf as an actor. I think he makes every movie worse. I think his acting talent is lacking, if there at all. So seeing him try to act as a teenage kid in juvenile detention, it just broke all sense of immersion for me. Like, everyone else was on point, but him alone is just like, wow, this is somebody saying lines in front of a camera.
Yeah.
I grew up on him and Even Stevens.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different when it's a TV show on Nickelodeon. You get more grace, but like every movie, everything.
Yeah, I felt like this was probably one of his better jobs, and I was like, is it because he's young? Always okay. We'll leave it at that. I was like,
this is my favorite Shia LaBeouf movie, and that's like,
I actually liked him in like Constantine, and and then what? Even some non-verbal stuff, like he was in the music video for Sia, Elastic Heart, and everything.
I don't
And that was more like
recall.
interpretive
I
dance
guess.
type thing, but
Oh, so silently was good.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, technically, our nonverbals are louder than what we say.
This is true. So Laura,
Yeah.
why was the movie a love for you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I had so many crushes on all of these people. Oh my gosh. The star cast is just amazing. And I started listening to the soundtrack again while listening to the audiobook, and I was just transported right back with that music. Oh, it is ingrained in my brain.
Oh, the
The
music.
adult-
Okay, yeah. That's an experience too, yeah.
The adult actors are superb. You got Sigourney Weaver,
Yes.
Aretha Kitt, and just it's so good. I love how they don't just tell you what happened in the past, they show you in the movie. So you're actually like, you're feeling what Kiss and Kate Barlow's feeling. You're feeling what what's their face? Madame Zeroni and them. It's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Madame Zeroni, Eartha
Yeah.
Kitt.
So it's so well interwoven with all of these coming together, and you're seeing it and you're listening to it, and those lizards, man, those leaping lizards.
Yeah. The faded dragon.
The CG, you can tell it's CG when they're like leaping and have the frills, but I can forgive it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not like it's an epic or anything. It's a middle grade contained adventure, and generational trauma, and it's just so good. It's so well done. I'm listening to the soundtrack right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, you go ahead, Natalie, and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, to add to it, it's what kind of like what y'all already said about seeing the past, but also seeing what scenes without Stanley, the youngest Stanley, technically. Seeing those scenes without him, so his family at home, how are they handling things while he's gone and such.
Mhm.
That was good, because the book is very like just following him the whole time. And so it was nice to see other actions and kind of move fluidly through time and space. So as well as the fact that it stayed pretty darn close to the book.
Yeah. Even with the way that it added those scenes in, it didn't feel like it was veering from the book, even though those flashbacks were in there here and there. I thought the movie was really, really good. There wasn't anything that I really had a problem with it that made it a love for me. It felt like that's where it fell. As far as like, if I think about the movies that I really, really like, and really, really love. So it was right in there. The cast, we're going to talk about the characters in a little bit, but these are just the things. I just really enjoyed the cast. In this, I think Laura was saying this is not an epic movie, but it's captivating still. They're literally in the desert in Texas for the majority of the movie, and it's enjoyable to watch their pain and suffering and their bonding. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. It is pain and suffering, and just I can't wait till we start talking about the characters, because Zero, my man, I love you, kid. Yes. But so there are just so many things, even the bad characters. I'm like, so yeah, definitely really enjoyed it. I think I might like it more than I think now that I'm talking about it. This is the first time I'm verbalizing. I'm like, is it a love fully? Maybe.
We'll peel it apart more.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the world building? Like, is this what you imagine, especially for the ones who read the book first and then saw the movie? did this feel like the world that you imagined in your head?
Yes.
Yeah. As someone who had already seen the movie, had glanced at the book, and then was doing a full rewatch and reread this time, it literally everything meshed. As I'm reading, I'm seeing exactly the dirt.
The hot
Yeah,
sun.
the hot, yes, I felt that. I just literally was feeling like I wanted to get in the shade as I was watching.
They showed the blisters.
Yeah, yeah, the holes. Just, I'm like, these kids are like, I just like the way that it looked like you could see all the work that these kids have been doing and for what. So the world building was really, really good, in my opinion. Anybody else want to talk about what they thought about the world building?
I was thirsty watching, and not like in a perverted kind of way. I mean, like I was literally just wanted a quick glass of water because we could watch the truck crash. We could watch them all like very carefully measuring out the water cup before they drink it. We could see him pouring it out, and I'm like, that is just a heartbreaking moment because I've definitely been there in the hot sun and been like, I need a drink right now, and it's just.
Yeah,
I mean, I want to say they did it better making you thirsty than Dune did. Just saying.
Quite possibly.
That's fired.
Yeah, quite possibly.
We quote holes all the time as a family. So we quote, "Once upon a time, there was a magical place where it never rained. The end."
Do you know the grandpa quote? I don't want to dig the holes, Grandpa.
Oh yeah.
Like when I was,
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
Yeah,
that's too damn bad. You keep digging.
So I was rewatching with my daughter, and she was like, just kind of like doing something. And when she heard that, she was a baby when this came out, so she was like watching, like when it was like rewatching with my youngest brother. So she goes, "That's where that came from." She's like, "I've been saying that." She's like, "That's been in my head, and I've even said it my whole life." And she goes, "That's where it's from." So
we also quote. Yeah. It smells like puke from a mule been ruminating on asparagus for 2 weeks.
Oh, there were some good singers in there. Mm-hmm. Let's get on to the characters, because anybody have a favorite character? Zero. Okay. Anybody else? As far as the kids, that's my favorite character with the kids.
Never mind, because I was totally not going to name one of the kids.
Okay, we can. Okay, favorite grown-up character, not a kid.
Honestly, no matter what movie she's in, but Eartha Kitt.
I love her.
I love her voice. I love her delivery. Like she's.
Was she perfect? I could never see anyone else doing that role.
Yeah, like and even though I still imagine Yzma Emperor's New Groove, she's still like. Yep. She's both. It's not like I see her and she's playing the same character. No. She is both characters through and through, and very diverse and unique, and yeah. But that's just me always loving whatever she's in.
Yeah, I know. My daughter and I talked about that too, because I'm like, I even love Yzma, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't. She's the worst, but her character is so fantastic.
Wrong lover. Every time.
Every time.
I really like Zero as well.
Zero.
As a kid, when I was teaching myself the Greek alphabet, I would write letters to myself in the Greek alphabet as Zero from Holes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a strange child.
I love that.
Oh, I loved how smart, and I feel like it showed up more in. I know that Zero caught on really quickly to reading, but I feel like it showed more in the book how smart Zero actually was. Like with rolling off those numbers, and Stanley being like, "How did you do that? Is that right? I guess that is right." Like I feel like it. I don't know if it's
it was like a full-on Matilda math moment.
Yes. Right. So I felt it more that how smart Zero was in the book, but I felt so bad for Zero, and you could just see Zero just shaking his head every time. Which was not the warden. Mr. Kapinski
Mr.
was
Sir?
like, oh yeah, was it Mr. Starwood? No, the one that was always calling him dumb. Like he's so.
Oh yeah, Mr. Pendansky.
Yeah.
Which
And Zero
so
would just
that
be like,
was a problem for me with Mr.
Yeah.
Pendinsky. He talked about, I'm going to call you by the names that your parents gave you, and I'm like, oh man, this man is respecting the children as
Yeah.
individuals. But then he spoke down to Zero like all the time and
all the time.
bashed him, and that was the one character trait that I did not fully understand. I feel like it wasn't ever explained.
Yeah,
like,
and I'm
why he
like, I
targeted
don't
this
know if he was trying, like, because he was, like, as far as they all go, he was the nicer of the people that the kids had to deal with, but not when it came to Zero. And I don't know if in his mind, look at me, I'm like trying to analyze, why is he doing this to Zero? That in his mind, explaining that he's just not smart, so he can't talk to you. Like, I'm just going to make this excuse for him and explain to you how unintelligent he is. That way you don't expect anything from him.
It
You
also,
know, and it was just awful. I was just like, oh. And even Zero would just be like just rolling his eyes and shaking his head at him.
but it
and
was
would just
also a
would not talk.
device to keep his last name a secret for a while. So we didn't make that connection until later.
Yeah. Yep. I was.
And to be,
But they had paperwork on him.
No, for us.
For us.
Oh, for us.
For the
Oh,
Zeronian
okay.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but still, that's the only thing that the author was missing, really. I mean, should have mentioned it earlier, but we're going full spoilers here. So, but yeah, that was just the one thing where I'm like, please just explain. And it could have been just as simple as Mr. Pendinsky had been trying to be personable with every kid, and because Zero never spoke, it just really, like, despite him trying, he felt wore down and was like, fine, like, I'm done trying. Like, it could have been a fed up situation. So
Yeah.
to be fair, it's also kind of a prison-like environment. So, you know, you kind of, in order to be a person of authority, you usually need to pick on somebody. And if you pick on somebody with too much power, then they push back. But if you pick on somebody who everyone else is picking on, then it's, you know, you can establish that you are above the rest of the kids while also still being friends to them. So it's kind of having your cake and eating it too in that case, where he's both a figure of authority and a figure who is friendly with most of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know,
Yeah.
awful scenario all around, but that could be a no prize, you know, explanation for it.
Yeah. And I felt it when Zero, I wanted it to happen. When Zero finally just knocked him in the face, I was like, yes. I'm like, yeah, could you have killed him? Possibly. But did he deserve just one good knockout for the way that he's been treating you?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Don't condone violence, but still, Zero, you needed that win.
wait, I thought that was Mr. Sir got knocked out.
No.
No.
No, it was Pendinsky.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, at least Zero got that, like, payback.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it was a moment. Wasn't it during a moment when he was talking down?
Yep.
Yeah,
He was asking him
Doing
what
the
the
whole, like,
DIG spell.
yeah, that whole thing.
I'm
And the
like,
liner of big.
yeah, I think I was fed up. Like, I felt fed up with him. Like, I'm like, I've had it. That's it. And then clunk. I'm like, yes. And I'm literally like, yes. And I'm like, probably shouldn't be cheering this hard for that, but yes. It's like he so deserved it. I really want to talk about. Oh, wait, before anything else about the characters and characterizations, I want to get into really quick because I just realized I forgot. Oh, I was saying before that I really liked all of the casting. John Voight, Sigourney Weaver, she is much like Eartha Kitt is who she is. I saw Sigourney Weaver then when he was describing, because I rewatched it, then I read the book, and I was like, that's what she looked like. I mean,
Down to the
because they
freckles.
really, the freckles, and it's just like, yep, I see Sigourney Weaver now. Yep. She was tough. She was so tough. Oh my gosh.
Wonderful actress.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
God, yeah, there's just, and I liked it in the book and in the movie because I feel like it challenged gender norms of like the warden. We don't want to piss off the warden, and then the warden turns out to be a woman.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that like slow drag out, and then it's like, oh, and then when you meet her, you're like, oh, it's a woman. Then it's like, oh no, she's ruthless. Like
that
cunning.
rattlesnake venom nail polish.
Oh my god.
Ah, yes.
Yes. And also, I wanted to really quick say hi to everybody who came to watch us chat about this. If you do have some thoughts about the book, just let us know so we can pop that up. If you guys see a comment about the book or the movie, let me know so I can go to that timestamp and pop it up for you guys. So let's get into execution. Characters, great job. I know the issue was Shia LaBeouf, but other than that, like really great. So the execution, I thought the way that because it really goes so much to the book, probably because the author did the screenplay and was like so hands-on. I felt like anything that was changed was so minute. It just was a change to make it feel more real. So I was like, okay. I liked the way that they started the movie. But I also liked the way that they started the book. It just felt right, appropriate, and I didn't, you know what I mean? So in the movie, we get this scene where we see Stanley's like running, and it's like he gets clonked with these shoes, and it's like then he's got them, and coincidentally his dad and his family are in this business where they're trying to get rid of the odors in the shoe. So what's the kid gonna do? So he's got those shoes, but they're turn out to be these stolen shoes. So I like the way that the movie started. I think it really drew you into it to get you where you needed to go. And there was this insertion more. I felt like I knew the family more in the movie. So even though they're pretty much the same, it's just that we get more. There's this expansion of Stanley's world. So I thought that the way that he executed that was done really, really well. And the interweaving of the backstories, I really love those. Like, I could have, I'm like, can we get just a whole movie of those? That would be great. And it was a little bit of a mystery when you're just watching it, trying to figure out how is this all connected. It was really great. Anybody else want to talk about what they liked or maybe didn't like about the execution?
So one thing that I noticed the first time I watched it as a kid was they didn't make Stanley be overweight in the beginning of the movie. And I was like, I'll forgive it. They didn't want to make a kid actor gain weight. Okay, fine.
Yeah, it'd been awkward. I felt like it would have been more awkward to try and make that happen if they knew the actor that they wanted for it. So your option is to choose an actor who's already overweight. But I'm glad they didn't try to go with like the fat suits or anything like that. I'm just glad that they just went with it. But I wouldn't have minded if they had actually been able to find an overweight kid to play the character. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason the director came out and said that he didn't want to put a child through the dramatic weight loss during filming.
Yeah.
For that. And I was like,
because how old was Shia LaBeouf? How old was Shia LaBeouf when he did this?
What year was he born?
You guys know?
He's got to be in his mid-20s when this was filmed.
He was born 86. So this came out 2003. So he would have been 18?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 17.
So he's probably 16, 17 when it was filmed.
Man, he had a baby face because he can play younger.
Yeah. Anything else about the execution, guys?
Yeah, I really liked how I'm hit or miss on the showing the family, because I liked in the book how it was a complete surprise at the end and it was just a nice way to wrap things up. But sort of seeing that progression through it worked for the movie medium. So it was really cool seeing how, I mean, I guess that's later on, but that was one of the cool. of the changes between the book and the film, I think that's one of the cool things that they adapted.
I think one thing that, I mean, they had to cut it in the movie because Shia LaBeouf wasn't overweight, but in the book, it worked better to convey just the amount of internal struggle and the confidence that Stanley had. But the flashback of learning ratios and math, where the teacher grabbed the smallest person in the class and the largest person in the class and made them weigh themselves to show that the smallest person was three times smaller than the largest. And I was just like, what freaking teacher thought that was okay? Because you know that probably has happened at one point in history. Like, I remember actually being a little bit of ashamed one time because the teacher was trying to show mean, median, and mode and all that, I think, or something like that. And she took all of our shoe sizes. But I had such small feet, like I was the outlier. And so she just changed my shoe size for and sized me up for the purpose of the thing. Didn't change anybody else. And so I had a complex for a bit of having small feet.
Oh no.
Everything. I mean, it's minuscule and stuff. And as an adult, I'm like, really, Natalie, did you?
But for a kid, you don't want to be
in that
different.
moment. You're like, you're just drawing into yourself and hoping you turn invisible.
Yeah, it's that moment in any movie where all of the kids turn to the one kid that's different. Kids don't. You can't do that to
no
kids.
kid wants to be like, hey, you're different from everyone else. Like, we want to feel unique, but not different.
Yeah, not singled out.
Yeah.
You want superpowers, not outlier features.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I could relate with that. And I'm actually kind of glad they didn't put it in the movie because I feel like there's so many important things in the movie that I feel that bringing weight as a discussion topic would be difficult and almost like perpetuate the issue because there were other kids there overweight.
Yeah.
But it was never discussed. They were accepted as people and everyone, it was more about the bond they had than who's skinny, who's weighs more. Like, no one cared. And I feel like that was a better message than harping on a kid having self-conscious thoughts about his own weight.
Yeah, I really like that. The diversity of the kids, again, was really good because you could see that didn't make the difference between who was tough or who was seen as weaker, and again, like I said when we talked about the book, that didn't matter. They kind of like jumped on each other, calling each other with the names and just the pushing around, only to in the end you see, oh, they really did care about each. It's like, I don't know.
Seniority was more about who's been here the longest.
Yeah, exactly. So I just really like the way that was way that was done. Do we have any more thoughts on execution, guys, about the way that, and then we'll talk about our favorite and least favorite changes. And I'll let anybody who's watching on the replay know there just weren't that many changes or nothing very significant.
I mean, I named the weight one, and I want to say that might have been. Oh, and the other change is what the family was researching with the shoes. It was in the book. It was how to repurpose the rubber of old shoes.
Yeah.
And whereas, which I mean, on a film, it would have been hard to like create the science of that. I think probably more expensive. But to talk about the smell, you don't have to change anything. It's just hold up the shoe.
Yeah, and it made for some really good comedy. I think it it endeared us more to Stanley's family. And that's probably a really good change. Now that you think about it, it's like, because it was more realistic, and it was you could almost smell it
Yeah.
when you
All
Yes,
the
it's
steam
fun.
from those shoes, man.
and like we're
It
gonna
was
get
in their
evicted
kitchen,
because of
too.
the stink.
Yeah.
It's just like it was too much.
Why in the kitchen?
Making her smell the shoes been boiling while she's eating.
Like smell it. It's like no, and the mom just looked so done with the smell, like so
Like, and
over.
she married into it and just like, oh boy.
But then they
Um,
start dancing together, and it's like, oh,
Yes.
they do love each other.
I actually, one of the things that actually made me laugh out loud, and I don't think this was in the book, was when the cops came to take Stanley away, the grandfather was like, I took him, and like was like, no, that's my bed and stuff, with
That's
all the posters of the
of the
The
athlete
athlete.
shoes.
and I
Yeah.
just, it made me laugh, like, in that, like, one of the, because there's a lot of depictions of families of like, you're just because you're blood doesn't mean you're family, and that was a nice moment of they're family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
it's
tight-knit
you could
group.
tell this family has some problems, but not the kind of problems that you would normally run into. They
Yeah,
actually
didn't
care about each
divide
other.
them.
They're just in a stinky situation.
But
Let's see. Anybody got any best and worst changes? Because
I
there were
just
basically there were
like
just
that we weren't tied down to a singular POV. So
Yes,
that
very
was
much.
a good change.
Being able to see more of the world and get more of the stories, especially those. I'm sorry, I really love those history story, the
Yeah.
little snippets. Every time it was, if we went too long watching the movie, if we went too long without one, I would be like, "When's the next one?"
He's so awesome.
Oh, and the onions, onions. I'm like, of all things, it's onions.
oh, we actually got to see Barface, I think was his name.
Barf bag.
Barfbag. At the
Yeah.
very beginning, like that
Yeah.
opening, like because it was speculated what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But we actually get him
Oh yeah,
and
bit by the
and
rattlesnake.
to me, that really, for the movie, it set the tone of like what kind of place this is and how it has affected the kids, where they're like, yeah, nah, let's go for a rattlesnake bite,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So including that as the start kind of really set the tone, as well as gave a little bit of comedic effect.
Yep.
Because kids will sit there and laugh. You're like, oh my god, he got bit by a snake. Whereas adults are like, oh my god, he got bit by a snake. So
One thing
yeah.
that
that was good.
oh my gosh, my brain just died.
it's okay. You've been up for a long time. I'll come in with one. The passage of time for me, it felt longer in the book, and I'm like, I don't know if when I was reading, I was like, I didn't feel to me watching the movie that they had been in the desert when it was just Zero and Stanley. It didn't feel as long to me as it felt in the book, and I don't know if that. I was like, I really need to go back and look, but it just felt like maybe just a couple of days or a handful of days, where in the book it really felt like a long time. So it just the time felt different as I was reading it and then switching between reading it and audiobook versus when I was watching the movie. It just didn't feel like they were that long. And it was a lot of chapters too. The chapters were really short.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh,
Like,
I don't think I was
it just
expecting that. I was like,
proves that you can still have a very in-depth story with little words, like just this. I don't know. It makes me proud of Flash fiction, because those chapters were the equivalent of a Flash, and it was so much power dynamics and personality clashes, and just even the setting, and knowing that sand and dust just covered everything, and just like, yeah, they packed a good amount.
yeah, and I really, when you're reading it, and you could tell we're getting to the final thought in that chapter, and I'm like, oh, that really is. It's not like just a scene, like scenes within chapters. So he just did those short chapters really well, and then you're really ready to moving on to the next thought. So I thought that that was a really good use of short chapters. But because when I was like, oh, it's so many chapters, and I was like, oh wait, but it's still the same regular length. We're good.
So one thing I remembered. So they always say like a rattlesnake bite won't kill you usually, like all these usuallys, and then you will die a slow and painful death if bitten by a yellow spotted lizard. Always. And then you see someone get bit by a yellow spotted lizard and they die pretty fast. It's like I wanted a long drawn out death sequence.
No,
but it's a middle grade, so okay, fine.
Yeah, what is long and drawn out? You know, I guess I could imagine that, like, you know, when something terrible happens and it only takes a few seconds, but it feels like you're in this moment forever. And it's like, dude, you keep talking about it like it was this long thing, but it really was just 1 minute. And it's like, but it felt like. So I'm like, in the eyes of a middle schooler, maybe it's just this long. I don't know. But yeah, I'm like that. Yeah, it's like you're dead.
Yeah.
So last comment, this isn't a best or worst change, but if you listen to the audiobook or the follow-up or whatever that happened with book publications after the movie came out, interesting fact, one of the things that happened in the book was that all the kids had to dig a hole 5 foot by 5 foot and 5 foot deep. And they said, and use your shovel as a measuring guide. Well, when they started filming, they realized that it's physically impossible to use the shovel as a measuring guide and still get the leverage to actually dig the size of the shovel. And I just found that interesting. And that this published writer that probably did so much research and everything still had this little like, oh, whoops moment. And in the movie, they still say the exact same line, even though they learned it was impossible. And so they didn't sway away from it. And it just proves that sometimes when you're getting hung up with the tiniest thing, or as a writer, you're beating yourself up because you didn't like check this one thing that only like a niche group of people will know. It's okay.
Well, maybe they were hanging up. Sorry.
Huh?
Maybe they're hanging off the side and they were digging it that way. Instead of being in the hole. And
I was thinking, like, I was trying to think logistically. I was like, well, if you only dig like downwards, and stuff, and then I was like, well, at a certain point, I don't know. I was trying to think the logistics of it, and it almost makes me want to test it myself. But
yeah, at a certain point, it's just going to be so awkward that it's not worth the effort to try and make it that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could probably make it happen. Like, if you needed a hole that size, you could make it happen. But man, it's just you're just making something that should be easy so much harder by restricting yourself to this specific dimension. It's like, oh my gosh, now we've got to, instead of just digging, we've now got to do all this and lean this way and now dig it out that way and cut in, and it's like, no.
Okay,
it's too much work.
Quick question, because I feel like this is really important for anyone who hasn't read the book or watched the movie. When you have both options out there, what do y'all recommend first?
I watched the movie first and then read the book, and all I could see was the characters in their spot. And there was only one time it got awkward, and that's like, I think it's around chapter 3 where they talk about how Stanley's overweight. But other than that, I everything that was in the movie is what I then pictured, the characters, and everything. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's so stinking close that I would probably
I feel like the only one that rivals,
if you don't want the spoiler of it, read the book first.
The only one that rivals is I would say Good Omens. Like though this and Good Omens are like the top, like true to the text cinematography that I've seen.
Yeah, where it's so close. Anything that is a change is so minor. But I really feel like, because that's one thing going back with reading the book second is all of those little insets of the scenes of the flashbacks and stuff. I was like, only because I already knew. I was like, oh, they're not going to tell us that right now. Okay, we'll wait. You get it. You'll get told it. But just the way that the movie inserts all of those things, I feel like if you read the book and then you watched it and got to see all those, that would be really cool. And also, it's because it is so much the same. It feels. I feel like it would feel very spoilery, and it did. Like, I wasn't surprised with anything that happened. The only thing that would surprise me is like that little thing when something was actually different, where normally adaptations and remakings or things that are inspired by have so many differences that there's lots of things that will pop out to you if you watched it first and then read. Here it's just very, very little. So I would say go ahead and read it and then watch it and see it all come to life. It wasn't how you imagined it would be, kind of thing.
No, same.
All right. Do we have any other final thoughts? I wanted to say about the author, Lewis. He started writing in the 70s and he had some success, but this was 20 some years out before he had this big breakout moment, So if you're out there and you're working on something, keep working. The big one's coming.
Yes. And again, like she said, he was writing like 20 some odd years and still 5 by 5 by 5 hole. That fact made me feel so much better as a writer that it's okay.
Even a veteran writer,
be experts at everything. Okay.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any final thoughts on holes or the experience that they wanted to let us know before we go?
Yeah, I can follow up on the thing I hinted at earlier, where it was, I really liked how Zero, he starts off and is like Satan, or he's getting, verbally abused by, what was it, Mr. Pandansky or something like that?
Yeah.
No, might have been Mr. Sir. Either way. And he says Satan, and I'm like, okay, well, that's weird, but it makes sense. And then, a page later, it's Stanley, and I'm like, oh. And then the third thing is like, oh, is your Zero asked Stanley if his name is spelled the same frontwards as backwards? And like, wow, this is really, really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Interesting fact. Stanley's last name was not going to be his last name spelled backwards at first. That was just a placeholder for the author. And then it just worked. So
that worked perfectly. Yeah, so do we have anything else, guys? Because I think we are just about ready to wrap it up. I was like, was there another thought I had? But if I think about it, I'll put it in the comments.
It's worth it. I would say if your children can read, I think it's appropriate, even like age 8. It's appropriate, even though it's middle schooler. Like I feel it's appropriate personally. There is the racial thing. It is only kissing, so spoilers. But to me, the most powerful line, and it was in the book as well as the movie, and I was so happy. Kate Barlow said, "Well, I kissed him back," and the guy was like, "Well, it's okay for you to kiss him. He just can't kiss you." And I'm like, "How? Kissing is a 2-person thing. There's no like one or the." It drove me crazy, but appropriately so, because with the wording, it just recognized how lopsided laws have been over the years. And I think it's a good exposure, especially because at a certain point, I don't know if they still do it, but sometimes kids will read Huckleberry Finn, and this is a kind of a introduction, whereas Huckleberry Finn is like just wade into the pool all the way.
Yeah. Yep. So what was going on back then? And we had some thoughts from our chat. Loved holes. That's all I gotta say.
Not plot holes, the book holes. Just throwing that out.
I haven't read the book, only watched the movie. And Morgan said, I haven't read the book since middle school. Reread it, then watched the movie, and I've seen the movie so many times. Nice.
You had it on DVD, and I would watch it over like every day for a while.
Yes. And Richard with his zingers about the author. It took him a whole long time to hit the jackpot. Thank you, Richard. Any other final thoughts? And then we'll tell you what we have coming up next. Are we good? All right. I really enjoyed this one. It was a pleasure to read and watch. So it was a good time. This
Very
one was
quick. Like audiobook wise, like 4 hours.
Yeah.
If you listen at 1 time speed and stuff. Really good.
Yep. It was great.
Exactly, Morgan. Exactly.
Nice, Morgan.
Still
Yeah.
randomly quote holes daily. Yeah, my daughter learning where some of the quotes came from. She was a baby when it came out, so she just didn't remember it as well as when she was rewatching it. She's like, oh yeah. Thank you, Richard. This was a fun chat. All right, so what we have coming up next, we are taking the month of May off. A lot of us, we have a lot going on. When we come back in June, so you guys have time, we're going to be doing Bridgerton. We've got a couple of possible guests coming to join us. Ben is going to be on vacation, but we're going to try and get Ben's thoughts on it before he goes, if we can do that. So Ben won't be here. He'll be off having a great time without us. And we'll be back in June. Yay. And
Shannon's happy I won't be here.
Yeah. So it's Bridgerton season 3, but it's book 4.
Yeah.
So it's
Romancing Mr. Bridgerton.
romancing. I was gonna say taming, and I was like, no, taming's not right.
yeah.
Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So this is Colin and Penelope's story. So if that's the POV you got in the book, you're headed in the right direction.
Yes. Colin and Penelope. We are skipping Benedict for now. But if you want to go ahead and, if you don't mind spoilers, you can go ahead and read Benedict's book to get an idea. We don't know what they're going to do in the show because this is a very loose retelling. It's more of inspired by, in my opinion.
Yes. And I will
But
say
it's
though,
fun.
the what's the final thing? There is still spoilers in the 4th book. So
Yes, there's still spoilers.
For what happened in book 3, but it's okay, honestly, because they've taken liberties across the board.
Yeah, and you never know what they're going to change. So just be aware if you are going to read along that the potential spoilers could be there depending on what they decide to keep and what they decide to change. So we'll be doing that in June. Stay tuned for the actual date. We're going to get with our guests and see which dates work best for them and that we can all get back here and do this thing because this is a lot of fun and I'm looking forward to Bridgerton. I'm going to see if everybody still loves it after season 3. Oh, because they're going to bring the drama. They're going to bring the drama. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. Thank you, Laura, for being our special guest. Let's go ahead and do some quick outros, and then we're out of here. Laura, we'll start with you. If there's anything you want to let the people know about you.
I'm Laura Nettles. I'm Most Favorite Horror. I have a new video up that goes over all of my story ideas, my work in progresses. Spoiler alert, there are 43. So if you want to see that, it's full of mood boards. And I will next be on JC and Morgan Lee's stream on Morgan's channel, 5 p.m. Eastern. And we are reading our poetry. Because it's National Poetry Month. That's me.
Can't wait.
Excited for that. I'm Natalie Locke. I write flash fiction, and I have a flash fiction prompt book that I co-authored with Chandra Arthur coming out in June called 1000 Words to Get Started. It is available for pre-order on my website, natalielocke.com, which will link you to Barnes & Noble's, the Indigo, Amazon, all the places. There's like 6 icons, and some of those places I never heard of before this. So, yeah, big advocate of flash fiction, and that's what you'll see on my channel constantly, as well as on Instagram, as well as reading constantly too, because I can't stop consuming. Yeah.
Same.
And I am Ben Pick. You can find me every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, as Running to Write on YouTube. And tomorrow, I will be showcasing all about the snowflake method as I outline my novel. I'm not going to give the specifics of how my book fits in the snowflake model, but I will be detailing what the snowflake model is.
Nice.
And possibly
Excellent.
using a different example.
Very excited. Stay tuned. Check out Ben's channel. Check out all of my guest channel. I will be back on Tuesday nights at 7:30 here on YouTube. And you can also catch me on Twitch if you want to check out my book, The Art of Witchcraft. It is a lot of fun. It is cozy. It is romance with a little bit of magic. And hopefully you'll have a good time with it. And that is all we have for today. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody who came to hang out in the chat with us. And if you're watching on the replay, feel free to leave your comments down below. Keep it friendly. And we will see you guys on the next one. See you back in June. Bye.